They weren't your typical outlaws. Where most criminals hid in the shadows, Eli and Mara Whitlock flaunted their rebellion in broad daylight. Dressed in tailored trench coats and vintage hats, they roared through small towns across the Midwest in a cherry-red 1933 Ford the 5/8 coupe, just like the infamous getaway car of Bonnie and Clyde. But this wasn't the 1930s. This was 2022. Eli, a history professor with a love for the outlaw mythos. Mara, an ex-art student with a fascination for Depression-era fashion. Together, they styled themselves as reincarnations of America's most infamous criminal couple, but with a deadly modern twist. Unlike their predecessors, Eli and Mara didn't rob banks. They didn't need to. Their targets were much more peculiar. They stole people. Between April and August 2022, 5 people vanished across rural Illinois and Missouri. No ransom notes, no bodies, just one bizarre calling card at each scene. A sepia-tone photograph of Bonnie and Clyde taped to the front door, no fingerprints, no message, just the ghost of a forgotten era. At first, the FBI suspected a cult. The victims had nothing in common: different races, ages, professions. The only consistent factor? All had recently posted about unsolved historical crimes on obscure Reddit forums and TikTok. The 6th disappearance cracked everything wide open. On August 19, Leah Bowman, a 29-year-old true crime content creator, vanished after posting a viral video titled, "Was Bonnie the Real Mastermind?" Her apartment was undisturbed. Her phone, laptop, and camera were still running. The only strange detail? A newly printed black and white photo of Leah, doctored to look like it was taken in 1934, left in the center of her desk. The FBI formed a task force. That same week, a tip came in from an antique store owner in Hannibal, Missouri. A couple matching Eli and Mara's description had recently bought vintage clothing, a 1930s camera, and a full box of blank film paper paid in cash. The lead investigator, Agent Riley Quinn, called the case unsettling and theatrically deranged. That's when the inconsistencies began. First, Leah's GPS showed her driving 5 hours west the night she disappeared after the timestamp of her last video post. Second, one of the earlier victims, Dr. Kendra Malone, was spotted on CCTV footage inside a diner in Oklahoma, weeks after she vanished. But when local police followed up, the waitress swore the woman paid in gold coins from the 1930s, then left without a trace. As more footage surfaced, it became clear some of the missing were still alive, but each time they were seen, they were dressed in 1930s attire, walking or riding in vehicles that no longer existed. It didn't make sense. Then came the twist. A forensics team ran facial recognition on the photo left in Leah's apartment. The software flagged something strange. The algorithm matched her altered image not just to her but also to a woman photographed in 1934, sitting beside a man who looked identical to Eli Whitlock. The photograph wasn't doctored. It was real. And it had been archived in the Library of Congress since 1972. How could a woman born in 1993 appear in a photo taken nearly 90 years before her birth? Agent Quinn dug into Eli's background. A published historian, he had written his thesis on temporal identity theory and was fascinated with people who believed they belonged in another time. His YouTube channel, long deleted, featured cryptic videos referencing rewinding the bloodline and stepping back to finish what they started. Mara had no criminal history, but her final art exhibit before being expelled from school was titled Portraits of the Unborn, a study in time displacement. The deeper the task force dug, the stranger the case became. On September 1st, a new photo surfaced on an anonymous dark web forum. It showed all 6 missing individuals, seated around a dinner table lit by candlelight. The style was unmistakably 1930s, and behind them stood Eli and Mara, dressed like bootleggers straight out of a noir film. The photo's captions simply read, "Still alive. Still rewriting the past." The FBI's tech division traced the image's metadata. It had been taken on Kodak film, developed using techniques discontinued in 1957. No digital trace. No source. Just a growing sense that something about this case defied every modern explanation. Agent Quinn, now obsessed, began connecting dots no one else saw. All of Eli and Mara's known movements corresponded with historical locations tied to unsolved disappearances from the 1930s. Some believed they were role-playing, others suspected a mass psychological operation. But Quinn started to believe something darker. What if they weren't just reenacting history? What if they were trying to become part of it? And then just days later came the breaking point. Quinn disappeared. His car was found abandoned on Route 66, engine running, lights on. A single object lay on the driver's seat, a 1934 newspaper clipping. The headline read, FBI agent vanishes chasing Bonnie and Clyde copycats, authorities baffled, but the article was old, yellowed, and authentic. There was one final, hand-scrawled note on the back: you can't chase ghosts if you've already become one. E&M. The press didn't know what to do with the story. The official statement from the FBI read, like every other missing persons case, Agent Riley Quinn is presumed missing, investigation ongoing. But inside the bureau, a quiet panic spread. Not just because they'd lost a lead agent, but because Agent Quinn wasn't just missing, he'd been erased. All security footage from the day he disappeared had been wiped clean. Traffic cams, gas stations, ATM logs blank. His apartment was spotless, too. No signs of a struggle, no signs he ever lived there. Even his personal effects were gone. Furniture, clothes, laptop, toothbrush, all of it. It was like someone had reached back and deleted him from reality. All that remained was the yellowed newspaper clipping and the cryptic message, you can't chase ghosts if you've already become one. E&M. Then came another message. An unmarked package arrived at FBI headquarters in Sacramento, addressed to Agent Quinn but sent after his disappearance. Inside was an audio reel, the kind used in the 1940s, with a note, listen carefully. Time doesn't repeat, it reclaims. The bureau scrambled to digitize the tape. What they heard made every hair on their bodies rise. It was Quinn's voice, distorted slightly, like it had been recorded underwater. He sounded calm, but there was something off, like he wasn't entirely himself anymore. If you're hearing this, I need you to know I followed them. Not just through cities or roads. Through time. I know how insane that sounds, but they've built something that lets them cross over. Not time travel. Something darker. More organic. They're not going back to change history. They're going back to collect it. Every person they've taken was obsessed with unsolved history. It's like they're building a new past from stolen people, creating an alternate lineage. And they're not alone. The tape cut out there. But in the background, just before the final silence, a faint voice could be heard whispering, he's not ready yet. Meanwhile, halfway across the country, in an abandoned train depot outside of Tulsa, a man named Caleb Jensen sat handcuffed in a dusty chair, blood dripping from a split lip. A former private investigator turned podcaster, he'd been chasing the Whitlocks for nearly a year. His obsession started after his brother, one of the first victims, vanished without a trace. Now, Caleb was their prisoner. Across from him stood Mara, dressed in a blue velvet dress, her hair pinned like a starlet from a forgotten era. She smiled faintly, holding an old-fashioned Polaroid camera. You're lucky, she said softly. You're going to be part of something beautiful. You're both insane, Caleb spat. We're curators, Eli said from the shadows. History got it wrong. We're just restoring the archive. Eli stepped forward holding a strange device, half-antique radio, half-computer, glowing faintly with a soft amber light. He turned a dial, and the room seemed to hum, the air itself vibrating. This is what they never told you, Eli whispered. Time isn't linear. It's layered. And if you peel it back far enough, you find the places where the dead still breathe. Suddenly, the light in the room flickered and behind Eli, a doorway appeared. Not a portal. A real wooden door, covered in carvings, glowing like embers. Mara stepped toward it and turned the handle. What lay beyond wasn't visible, but the sound that came through chilled Caleb's bones. It was laughter, children playing, a jazz tune echoing faintly, and beneath it all, something darker, a low hum, like a beast breathing slowly. This is the past, Eli said. But not the one you know. This is where forgotten people live again. Then he turned to Caleb. And now, so will you. That night, a fire consumed the train depot. Local authorities found no bodies, only burnt photographs nailed to the walls. But one photo was spared, half-charred at the edges. It showed Caleb, seated at a dinner table. The same table from the previous leaked photo. Around him sat all 7 missing individuals, dressed in 1930s clothing. Except this time, they weren't smiling. They were facing forward, eyes blank, as if frozen in place. And this time, a new person stood at the head of the table. Agent Riley Quinn. His face was pale, expression calm, but his eyes were not his own. In a secure basement beneath the Library of Congress, a secret division of the FBI reviewed the photo. Dr. Evelyn Harper, head of Project Echo, stared at the image for several long minutes before whispering, "It's happening again." The agent beside her looked confused. What do you mean again? She pulled out a dusty file from a locked drawer marked 1935. Inside were sketches of the same door, the same symbols, and a black and white photo label. The first echoed Bonnie, Clyde, and two unknowns, except the unknowns were unmistakably Eli and Mara Whitlock. To be continued in part 2. The echoes never die. Want to know where Eli and Mara are headed next? What happened to Agent Quinn? And how far back does this twisted journey through time and murder really go? Subscribe now and turn on notifications. Part 2 drops soon. Some stories end in blood, others echo forever.